And I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.
Hey, everyone! Are you rad for Christ? Are you fired up for Jesus? All right, welcome back to another episode of Radical Christianity, where we take a look at faith in action. I am your host, Drew, and we have a great show lined up for you. We are so excited to have you here with us today. Really, really are. Okay, have you heard about this evangelical college in the United Kingdom that has sparked debate over scripture and intolerance after it fired a lecturer for tweets labeling homosexuality a sin? Yes, fired over a tweet. This controversy started back in February when Cliff College lecturer Aaron Edwards posted a tweet affirming the historical biblical position on sexuality. Since, as I'm sure you know, Twitter is a dumpster fire of mostly anonymous ranting by opinionated warriors of the woke cancel culture, there was obviously some pushback. Among other things, Edward was accused of being homophobic and even a terrorist for asserting that the Bible views homosexuality as sinful. Okay, I can see the homophobic claim coming, stupid as it may be, but a terrorist? It's not like Edwards is shooting people or bombing big events. The man's affirming scripture. He's not hijacking airplanes, for heaven's sake. So Cliff College administrators quickly distanced themselves from Edwards' position, saying the tweet does not represent either the views or the ethos of Cliff College. So, a Methodist church doesn't believe in what the Bible says. Huh. Okay. Well, some of the tweets from critics who were transgender, according to their pronouns, were calling out Edwards to accept people as they are, coming from transgenders. Bro, you can't even accept yourself for who you are. This is clearly a situation of lack of tolerance. But ironically, the intolerance is for the Christian Bible teacher who is affirming orthodox beliefs on sexuality. As Christians, we are to show love and compassion. We are all broken people, and that is why we need Jesus. Pointing out the sinful isn't intolerant, it is just telling the truth. I guess this college has forgotten what principles it was founded on and failing to abide by its own beliefs. Okay, everyone, today we have guests Brandon Davison of the Hills Church, Tulare Street, and the guys at Holy Smoke Men's Ministry. Thank you for joining us. Are you rad for Christ? Are you fired up for Jesus? All right, woo! All right, everyone. This is a guest I'm excited about. This is my good friend. We have torn some dirt up together. He teaches an E2 12 class as well as runs the campus over on Tulare Street for the Hills Church. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Brandon Davison. Yeah. Right on,
How's it
man.
going, man?
Great to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. Long time coming.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great to have you here,
Yeah,
man. It's here. You know, we've been talking about this show for a while.
Yes, you have.
You've been aware of this for quite some time. I don't know, at least almost a year, probably, right?
At least over a year, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
wild, right? So, please share with the audience your testimony.
My testimony, geez. Make it easy, huh? So,
It's my job.
well, brace yourself. So it started for me really early. I was born in the 80s to drug-addicted parents. Both my parents were into cocaine. My mom was really young. She was 16 when she had me. My dad was 26. He ended up going to prison for getting my mom pregnant, which kind of set a theme in my life. My dad just being in and out of prison my whole childhood. Mom was just a kid herself, so she didn't really know how to raise me. Whenever my dad was out of prison, he made it known to me as a kid that he didn't want me as a part of his life. I was never part of the plan. You know, I kind of messed up his plans. He was the neighborhood drug dealer, and now he had to settle down with this woman and try to raise a family. And so that really kind of set the tone for my growing up. But you know, when you're a kid, your dad is like your superhero, right? And so I wanted to be just like my dad when I grew up, but all I saw from my dad was dysfunction. He was not a good husband, wasn't a good dad, wasn't actually necessarily a good person. And so really early on, I started following in my dad's footsteps. So 12 years old, I started getting arrested. I was boosting from stores, stealing cartons of cigarettes to sell to the high schoolers. By 14, I had went to juvenile hall for a string of residential burglaries. I was the little mastermind in the neighborhood. Got a bunch of kids to go break into houses, and we were stealing booze and whatnot. And I ended up getting busted for that. And it was at 14, the juvenile courts, the judge told me that he was going to send me to prison until I was 18. Because he said I had a voracious appetite for other people's property. And that always stuck out to me. And he said, I'm going to sentence you to prison until you're 18, or you can go to this military school, and if you graduate this school and you do good, we'll let you off the hook and expunge your record. So at 14, I ended up in this military school, and I did great, man. I finally found kind of that piece that was missing in my life was strong men, strong male role models, somebody to give me discipline and structure. And so I did really great at this school. I actually graduated with a high school diploma at 16. Excuse me. At 16, I graduated with a high school diploma and an academic scholarship to a local community college. So at 16, I'm at my graduation, and like the whole world is starting to look great. Like I finally have some opportunity, and because I mean, we grew up broke. I grew up in the trailer park. I was never going to go to college. So this was like everything, the biggest opportunity in my life to this point. And at my graduation, I get my scholarship award. Like I got a medal around my neck. I was got some awards at this graduation. And when I come down off the stage, my dad had just gotten out of prison. He's there at the graduation. My mom's there. My family's there. And my mom says, man, we're so proud of you. Like, you're doing great. But I have a U-Haul in the parking lot, and I'm moving out of state, like, right now, and I want you to come with me. We were living in Arizona at the time, and she was moving here to the Central Valley. Yeah, she had some family here. And for me, I'm, like, stuck with this problem now. Like, I have this scholarship to this community college in Arizona where we're living, or like I can go with my mom and move to California. And so I told her, like, no, I'm not going to go with you. I'm going to go to college. And so I ended up moving in with my dad. He had to stay in Arizona because of his parole conditions, because he had just gotten out. And within a couple weeks, I ended up getting a check from the scholarship. So it was like $6,000 or $7,000. Like I cashed this check. I brought home this money. And I look at my dad. I come home. I've got all this cash. And I'm like, Dad, have you ever seen this much money, man? And he's like, dude, that's awesome. You know what we should do? We should smoke meth. Yeah, I laugh about it now, but my entire childhood was this like seeking my dad's approval and his attention and everything, because he wanted nothing to do with me. And in that moment, like I was the most important person in the world to him. Obviously, looking back now, it was because of the money. But we ended up smoking my entire scholarship in a couple weeks. Missed my classes, lost the scholarship. And so, I don't know, 6 months later, we're living in a tent in the woods. I'm a raging meth addict. We have nothing. And I have like this moment of clarity, and I take our car that we have, and I drive it most of the way to California. Ended up breaking down in like Barstow or something, coming over the border. My mom had to come pick me up. So I get to Fresno, 16 years old, just lost everything, now have this meth addiction. And I'm like, dude, this is a fresh start. Like, Fresno's going to be awesome. Nobody knows me. I can start over fresh here, right? Well, what happens is, I don't know if you are aware of this or not, but like there's meth in Fresno.
Yeah, Carruthers like the capital of the world.
So I pretty quickly find the meth in Fresno and just get right back to my addiction. And I'm not working, so like meth isn't free. So I need to start figuring out how to pay for meth. And what everyone was doing was committing crimes. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, like I'll start stealing cars like these guys are. But the problem is I don't know how to steal cars. And so there's not like YouTube back then to like, oh, how do I hotwire a car? So I start attempting to steal cars. But what happens when like you're not good at committing crimes is you get arrested. And so I started getting arrested, and literally the week after my 18th birthday, I'm sitting in the Fresno County Jail, and I end up on a bus headed to Wasco State Prison. 18 years old, I'm going to prison. And that was the next 10 years of my life. I went, that first term, I did a year. I was out for 1 month, and then I went right back. And every time I would go to prison, I would get cellies or I would meet people and I would learn like more crimes. Oh, well, you could do crimes like this, or you could do crimes like that. And so you become more of a criminal going through the system. And so every time I'd get out, I'd have this great plan like, oh, I'm not going to steal cars. I'm going to buy stolen cars and chop them up and sell the parts. Or I'm going to start selling drugs, or I'm going to rob people, or I'm going to. So every time I would get out, I was never out for more than a month. I think I went back, I did 3 years. I was out for 10 days, went back, did another year. So out of the 10 years from 18 to 28, I had 6 months collectively on the streets. I did 9.5 years out of 10 years between 18 and 28. And in that time in prison, I started using a needle to do meth. I became an IV meth user, joined a white supremacist prison gang. Because as a kid, I didn't have a sense of identity, I became like this kind of chameleon. I would blend into any setting. Well, when I got to prison, I blended into the prison setting. And I was like, well, I'm going to be a gangster. Start beating people up and volunteering to stab people. And like I was just fully invested in that life because it gave me the affirmation that I needed. You would go beat someone up and people were like, dude, you're awesome. Like, good job, kid. So I was fully invested in that life. And all of that led me to, at 28 years old, I get out of prison. I meet a girl. I'm with her for a few months. We have this great life until she finds out I'm using drugs. We have a kid together. And when she finds out I'm using drugs, after the kid's born, she had no idea. She was a total square. Math major from Cal Poly. Amazing woman. Had never been around drugs, though. When she finds out that I'm using drugs, I tell her. And she kicks me out, which she should. She has a newborn at home. I'm stealing money. I'm being a turd in her house. And that just ended up being the darkest period of my life. I had lost the only stuff I'd ever cared about. That little girl was the only person that I'd ever like actually loved and wasn't just using to support my habits or manipulate or anything like that. And when I lost her, I just went off the deep end. So I spent about 3 months running the streets. It was a really dark time. I got suicidal, had a couple really close calls with taking my own life. I think I was roundabout trying to kill myself. The crimes I was engaging in, robbing dangerous people. The problem was that I wanted to stop using drugs so that I could get back to that girl and my family and the baby. But every morning I would wake up and I'd say, I'm not going to use today. And within a couple hours, I would be at the Connect's house, I'd be using, and I'd be like, what did I do? Like, why can I not stop? So I couldn't live without drugs, but then the drugs I'd been using so much that I got to a point where the drugs weren't working anymore. So I had like this little voice in my head that tells me how broken I was. There was some sexual abuse when I was a kid. I kind of glossed over that, but I'd have that little nagging voice like, you're broken, you're damaged, you're a piece of you know what. And the drugs weren't shutting that voice up anymore. It had for years. So the drugs weren't working, but I couldn't live without the drugs. And all of that led me to this point where I had decided I'm going to end my life on the morning of August 28th, 2015. And so I had a little storage, Daryl's mini storage on over by Motel Drive, where I would hang out and keep my few belongings, and I had my gun in there, and I was like, okay, in the morning when this opens, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna end it. And so that night I was like, well, I might as well go get high. Like I'm not gonna end my life tomorrow. So I go to the Motel Drive and I'm hanging out at this motel, and I go to leave like 10, 11 at night, and I go outside and the car that I have, it won't start. And so this devastates me. Like everything in my life has gone so wrong, and now my car broke down. And so I'm sitting in this car all night. I'm crying and I'm doing drugs. And at some point in the night, I'm like yelling at God, like, God, if you're real, F you for my dad, my mom, my broken family, the trailer park I grew up in, the prison, all of this crap. Like my life just sucks and it's your fault. And if you're real, like you should do something about it. And in the morning, as the sun's starting to come up, I think my storage opened at like 8. So it's probably like 6 a.m. The sun's coming up. A tow truck shows up to tow my car. I was parked in the manager's parking spot. I didn't realize it. Well, I guess the manager called to have my car towed. And this dude comes up and knocks on the window and he's like, hey, buddy, I got to take the car. And I get out of the car and like my initial reaction is to like be mad at him, start yelling at him. And I just broke. I just started like weeping, crying, and I ended up telling this complete stranger my whole life story. Like everything that happened. And this dude's just like, he just got to work. He's like, what the heck? I tell this dude my whole life story, and he's like, man, do you want to get sober? I'm like, yeah, bro. Did you not hear the story? Like in 2 hours, I'm walking to a storage unit to kill myself. Like, yes, I would love to get sober. And he said, I just graduated a program called Teen Challenge a couple months ago. I could probably make a call and get you in. And so I was like, dude, I'll do anything right now. So he called, and it was, they didn't have Teen Challenge in Reedley yet. So I had to go to Oakland. He called the Oakland Center, and they said, yeah, get up here. So I called the girl that had broke up with me. Her name's Sunny. I called Sunny, and I said, hey, I know you don't want to talk to me. I know you don't want anything to do with me. But if you could just do me this favor, can you drive me to Oakland so I can go to a program and get help? And she was like, yes, I will do anything to get you help. So she got off work at like 5 o'clock. She was like, I don't know what you're going to do, but I don't get off till 5. So the dude said, I'm not even going to tow your car. He laughed. He was like, best of luck, man. And I got in my car, and it freaking started.
Oh.
My car started, so I drove it over to Sunny's house, and I waited for her. And at 5 o'clock, we got in her car, and we drove to Oakland. And I think it's like a 4-hour trip. We're about 3.5 hours into the drive. And the tow truck driver, he called my cell phone. He goes, hey, man, I forgot to tell you, it's a Christian program. And I was like, Christian program? Pff, I don't want nothing to do with Jesus. Like, what the heck? And I told Sunny, I go, turn the car around. Just take me back. I'm good. Like, I thought it was going to be something that would help me. I didn't think it was going to be this Jesus cult stuff. And so Sunny, in that moment, probably saved my life, because she looked at me and she said, you know, if you don't want to go to this program, you don't have to. She said, but I'm going to Teen Challenge in Oakland, and you're getting out of the car. And if you don't want to go to the program, you can walk home. And I was like, dang, okay. What happened to old codependent Sunny that did anything I wanted? And so we got to Oakland. I mean, it's probably like 10, 11 o'clock at night now by the time we got there. And it was in probably one of the most lovely areas of Oakland. This stretch of neighborhood was on an FBI watch list for murders in the country. I mean, it was terrible. And I got out and I looked down the street and I'm like, oh man, like, I don't want to be a white boy walking through here. Like, that's crazy. So I went inside Teen Challenge, man, and I ended up falling asleep, and I ended up staying. And what happened in Teen Challenge was I loved it, man. The people loved me without any kind of angle. They just absolutely loved me. And I didn't believe in Jesus. I didn't want anything to do with Jesus. But these people just loved me and served me. And because of that, I ended up sticking it out. And so just a couple weeks into being in this program, we would have to go to these different churches. And like every day I'd have to walk down the block and go water these churches' lawns and stuff. But we ended up going to this church called Sequoia in Oakland. And it's primarily African-American church. Like, I literally was like the only white dude in the church. And we get there. Now, remember, like, I learned racism in prison. I joined a white supremacist prison gang trying to fit in. And so I still have all of this like junk in my brain, this way that I've been programmed through prison. And so I'm standing in this church and I'm like, crap, like I'm the only white dude here. And I would sit in the back and I'd always be pissed off and I'd cross my arms. And this lady got up to sing. They started the worship and she got up to sing. And when she opened her mouth, I was like, oh, her voice is beautiful. And so I stood up, but like I still have my arms crossed because I'm pissed off and I don't want to be here. And as she's singing, she was singing this song, Great Are You, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. And as she's singing it, like my arms uncrossed, and I'm just like mesmerized by her voice. And by the end of the song, I was weeping. And I was like, I knew through that song, through this woman, through that church, that God was absolutely real and that Jesus wanted a relationship with me, and it didn't matter how far I had wandered off, all the bad stuff I had done, that God still wanted me. And that song still gives me chills to this day because I remember that moment. And it's so funny that like God would use an African-American church to bring a stupid white boy who was like stuck in this racist BS to bring him to Jesus. And that just like broke everything open for me. And from that moment, I absolutely caught fire for Jesus. And so I come back. I did not finish the Teen Challenge program. I left a couple weeks after that. I went home. Sunday let me move back in, and immediately we got plugged into church, got plugged into Celebrate Recovery. And for the first probably like 2 years that I was home, I'd go to 2 or 3 different church services on a Sunday. We'd go to 2 or 3 different Celebrate Recovery meetings during the week. And I just absolutely, as much as I chased drugs and crime on the streets, I started chasing Jesus and his church. I just absolutely fell in love with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of in a nutshell.
So, all right. So you have come a long way even from then.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I mean, like Sunny is
My
now
wife.
your wife
Yep,
now.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's amazing.
Yeah, she's the most amazing person I've ever met.
Yeah.
Sonny, if you end up watching this, I love you.
He really does. And you are very active at the Hills Church. And you're now the pastor over at Tulare Street.
Yep.
You were the online pastor over at Clovis Hills, and then now you want to tell that story about scrubbing toilets and all that?
Oh yeah. So I went through. We have a school of ministry at Clovis Hills called our E212 program. And so what it is it's basically a condensed seminary class. So it's for people who work full time and go to church, but still want like that seminary level leadership training. And so a guy named Todd Harris actually found me. We were living out in Reedley. He found me at a Celebrate Recovery meeting. He heard me share.
He was a guest.
Oh, Todd's been on the show?
Yeah,
oh man, I got to get off this couch. No, Todd, I owe so much to Todd Harris. He heard me speak out at the Celebrate Recovery meeting, and he was like, "Hey man, God's gonna do something with you, and you need to let him." And I was like, "What are you talking about, dude? I'm working 80 hours a week welding and just trying to figure out marriage and all this other stuff." And he's like, "No, God has a plan for you, man. I think you should come to my church and get in this leadership program, and I'll pay for it." So he got me a scholarship into this E212 program, and I came out to Clovis Hills. And now I've got tattoos, I smoked, I cussed, I told dirty jokes, and I say that all in the past tense, but some of that is not past tense. But I came, and I had this idea like, oh, North Clovis, like, I'm not going to be welcome here. And I ended up going to Clovis Hills. And it is not anything that you think North Clovis would be. It is the most open and accepting church I've ever met. It actually really changed my relationship with the church in general, the way that this church welcomed me. But I went through this 1-year program. And at the end of this program, I really did feel a sense that God was calling me. And I felt like God was calling me to be a pastor. And so when we graduated this program, I asked Pastor Scott runs the whole thing. He's the executive pastor at Clovis Hills. And I said, "Hey man, I graduated, like, are you guys going to hire me now?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely. We'd love to hire you. Come next week and we'll have an interview." And so I show up next week, and my interview was with the facilities director because they needed a part-time weekend custodian. And I was like, "I think I'm in the wrong interview." And he goes, "No, this is the right place." So I took the job, and I became the part-time weekend custodian at Clovis Hills. And it is the best thing I ever did for my ministry, because I literally started by scrubbing toilets and changing trashes, and I got to see from inside how a church operates. And I got to learn, like, sitting backstage, watching how pastors do what they do and how everything functions. And it was just an amazing 3 years of doing that. And it was a lot of work because I'm still working full time and I'm still trying to manage a family. But it was the best investment I've ever made in my ministry. I recommend anybody, like, if you're going to start in ministry, start in the bathrooms. That's the way to go, and it keeps you humble. Like, even today as a pastor of a church, I'm like, no, like, I'll clean bathrooms. I don't care. Like, it's just as important as anything else that happens at a church on Sunday. And then during COVID, we weren't meeting, so they laid off the custodians because nobody was coming to church. And then a couple weeks after that, they were like, "Hey, we actually think we need to pivot to online church. Would you come and be our online pastor?" So I got licensed as a pastor in 2020, and I led our online campus for 2 years. And then January of last year, we had the opportunity to go plant our Tulare Street campus, which that's a whole nother story in itself. But
yeah, well, the Tulare Street campus is it seems to be doing pretty good.
It is indeed. Despite me being in charge of it, it is flourishing.
Well, you got a lot of really great people on board over there.
Yeah, we do. We do indeed. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. So you want to talk about Convicts for Christ?
Yeah, let's talk about Convicts for Christ, man. So Convicts for Christ was started through my experience of coming to Jesus. So when I came back from Teen Challenge, I didn't know anything about church culture. I'd never grown up in church. The only thing I knew about the church from like growing up was they come once a year at Christmas to drop off toys and take pictures, and then they're gone, and I never see them again. And so I thought all kinds of things about the church. So not knowing anything about church, I just started going randomly to churches in town on Sunday, and I would not dress up. I used to wear wife beaters until I got fat. I'd wear a t-shirt, jeans, flip-flops, tattoos, flick a cigarette out as I'm going through the door. And my experience was I got unwelcomed at a lot of churches. Hey, we don't dress like that. Hey, we don't talk like that. Hey, maybe you should try somewhere else. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was absolutely convinced that if I didn't figure this thing out with Jesus, I was going to go back to the streets and end up dead. Like, that was the driving force in my stubbornness to keep going. Because it was really defeating week after week to not be welcome at church after church. And so until I finally found, I found a couple of churches where it was cool to go, but then when I finally landed at Clovis Hills, and I was like, this is how we should treat people when they come through the door. It doesn't matter where you've been, because we don't care about where you've been, because Jesus didn't care about where people have been. We care about where they're going. So come in dressed however you are, in whatever shape you're in, and let's introduce you to Jesus and let him take care of where you're going. So when I found that, like, that was it for me, and I found a home and got comfortable and started to dive in to discipleship and serving and all of that. So Convicts for Christ was born out of that experience. So I have this passion, this desire in my heart to see people coming out of prison and out of addiction find a thriving relationship with Jesus that can change their life, that can radically transform their life. And the problem is, some of these guys, if they get out of prison, they're like, hey, I really don't want to go back to prison. I should try a church. If they go to one of those churches that I found, and they say, hey, no, we don't want your kind here, they might be like, well, screw church and just go back to the streets. And right now, especially, we've got this fentanyl epidemic. A lot of my people from back in the day are dying, and I don't want to see that. So we created Convicts for Christ. It's essentially a network of people who have come out of addiction, come out of prison, lifestyle, have had life transformational experiences with Jesus. And we have created a network of churches to send people to, recovery meetings to send people to, and basically a network of friendly churches and friendly places to go. So say a guy gets out of prison or he gets sober and they connect with us at Convicts for Christ, we'll pick them up and take them to Clovis Hills on a Sunday. We'll take them to the Tulare Street campus on a Sunday. There's a few other churches, Adventure Church, Northeast Church, churches that there's a group of us that go there. So we'll pick you up, come with us, we'll have lunch afterwards, and try and get you plugged into this church, or take them to celebrate recovery meetings during the week, that kind of thing. So that's essentially how it started. Was we just want to hang out. We have barbecues together probably once a month. We meet up and play cards, just stuff like that, where it's, hey, it's sober. It's people that are just like you, have been there but have grown past it, that can give you good guidance and getting them into discipleship. And it grew from there. We became a 501c3. And so now we have a component where when people are getting out, we take them to go see their parole officer. We get them clothes. We get them a cell phone, try and get them plugged into a sober living house, and walk through their first couple months with them. Because my experience and a lot of people's experience coming out of prison is those first couple days are critical. Because you're like, hey, I want to do better, but I've always done this. And if somebody doesn't catch you and point you in the right direction, pretty much right away, we're going to go back this way. And we want to catch them and help show them this way. So that's kind of what Convicts for Christ has turned into.
That's awesome, man. And you know what? I want to say that the things that God is doing with you is just amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. I am grateful that you're my friend.
Yeah, man.
And praise Jesus, man.
Can I just add two little things, because I want to follow up on these. First of all, my dad, who is kind of like the villain in the whole story, about 2 years ago, he came to faith. He went through a program. He got baptized, saved. He's doing great now. He got his ups and downs, but me and him made amends, and he actually lived in my house for a while and like got to know his grandkids. So God brought that story full circle. And then I also just have to follow up, because anytime I talk about like the white supremacist prison gang stuff, like God has led me on the way. So like the Tulare Street campus, we're in the Edison neighborhood. It's like 3% white. Like my biggest demographic is Hispanic and African American. And so God has like strategically put me in a place. And I feel like I get to make a living amends to people that I had never met them, but I had, for whatever reason, decided to hate them. Now I get to love people that I had never met from those same demographics. And I got to go on a mission trip to Malawi, Africa a couple years ago with Pastor Scott, and I got to preach in the prisons. And like in Africa, I got to tell my story in the prisons, and we got to baptize inmates. So I love God's brought me on this path of reconciliation with all of the people that I've done damage to in my life. And it's just the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It is. So I always have to follow that up. Like, hey, I'm not still a racist and I still don't hate my dad. like God's brought it all around full circle, and it is the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. When you give it all to Jesus, he's going to fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's all like, well, you know, my life's a disaster and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know how to fix my life. And it's like, the answer is Jesus.
Yep. You don't fix it. Jesus does.
Yeah.
You just got to shut up and let him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is the message for everybody.
Yeah.
That is the message right there.
Yep.
Man, it's
I
so good.
appreciate you, man.
I'm so grateful that you're my friend.
Yeah. Likewise, man.
Yeah. So, Frank,
What's up, Drew?
how you doing, man?
Good, thank you.
Good. So, for the audience here, if you could just tell us how you introduced to Holy Smoke.
Thank you. So, about 35 years ago, I started hanging out with an ambitious young contractor named Eric Tinkin. We used to use my expense account as our personal lunch fund and bond over business ideas. It didn't take long before he corrupted me in the pleasures of cigar smoking. And then who knew, 3 decades later, he'd become the founder of what is becoming an international men's movement that combines cigar smoking with Bible study.
That's pretty awesome. So tell me, what's the most amazing thing you've seen with Holy Smoke so far?
You know, it's interesting. Men have a really traditionally, historically, a hard time finding a place where we could lay down our sword and just be ourselves. Holy Smoke offers an atmosphere of genuineness and vulnerability that, not surprisingly, becomes a catalyst for changed lives. And I've seen, over 3 years I've been involved, more changed lives than in many years of traditional church.
All right, so changed lives is the thing. Any specific story you want to share?
There have been, well, as a general sense, there have been tears in this room. There have been people sharing stuff that's been deep secrets they've shared to 20 men because of the safe environment we have here. We've even gone to baptisms, salvations. We have a judge that has convicted felons, and they end up meeting in this group and not hate each other, and it's a catalyst for healing as well.
That's awesome. Frank, thank you. So glad of what you guys do here. It's awesome.
Thanks, Drew.
All right, Scott. Okay,
Yep.
so what does Holy Smoke mean to you?
Holy Smoke has been an incredible journey by accident.
Oh, okay.
It's really an accidental journey, which I think is the way God oftentimes works. So Eric and I, we knew a couple guys that were in the cigar shop that were interested in the Bible, but they didn't go to church. They just had questions, and so he said, well, let's invite them to come over to my backyard. We'll smoke cigars. So that's how it started. And then it was more guys and more guys and more guys, and now there's Holy Smokes popping up all over the place. So sometimes I guess you don't know what God is up to. You just obey the first step, right? So Eric was obedient to the first step. He had concerns and desire for these guys to come to know Jesus, and they did. Two guys. One guy gave his life to Jesus in the middle of Westwoods, praying the prayer, and he was one of the guys that was the original. He was there at that one impromptu meeting in Eric's backyard, and it just morphed into a Bible study that we do now every Thursday, and other people are doing it around the country. So it's been cool.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Okay, so what would you say is the most incredible thing that you've seen or experienced since Holy Smoke started?
The most incredible experience?
Yeah, with Holy Smoke, yeah.
Gosh, that's hard to pin down. I would say just seeing the lights come on in different guys' lives where they believe or they have faith or something about the Bible, but then all of a sudden the lights come on, and it's like they get it, right? That's the work of the Holy Spirit. Something we say all the time here is you let the Word of God do the work of God. So we're just walking through the Word of God, and God's Spirit then breathes life into it. It comes alive in people's hearts and minds and brings about transformation.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. You got your coin?
I've got my coin right here.
All right, cool. Thanks, Scott.
Thank
Great
you.
seeing you.
You too.
So, Dustin, you have started a Holy Smoke in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I moved down there, connected with some really great guys, and we had done something similar to Holy Smoke previously where we had lived other places, but I wasn't even aware of Holy Smoke. So a friend of mine, Chris, said, we do this thing out in Clovis, Fresno, where I'm from, and I said, that's a great idea, and so I kind of pitch it to some of my buddies out in Baton Rouge. I'm like, this is a thing that we can do, and they immediately bit. And the whole purpose was, the four of us were Christian guys, very, very solid, and we like drinking beer, we enjoy whiskey, we enjoy cigars, but we noticed there was not a good transition group for people in the Bible Belt to make it into church. A lot of people just didn't feel comfortable in church, didn't feel like church was the place for them, and so we decided to start this, one, so we'd have more time to hang out, but two, to give guys kind of that in-between to show that, the gospel is for you, right? And showing that they can, drop their guard and just be them.
That's awesome. So what's the most amazing thing you've seen with Holy Smoke so far?
Just some immediate community. The group has been, I think we hit a max of 12 guys at any given meeting. So when you compare that to some of the other groups, we're a little bit smaller. But I mean, it is instant, tight community. You got friends that just otherwise wouldn't be friends, and how easy it is for them to want to be held accountable with each other. That's been great. When you get to the prayer request at the end, it's like, hey, what can we pray for each other? And guys just kind of drop the heavy loads that I don't see coming, because maybe as a facilitator, I'm just trying to get through, the points and make sure that we stay on topic and everything. And then a guy drops something real. That's always been, to me, the most fascinating part.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Justin, great meeting you.
Thanks.
So glad you're doing this.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, right on, man. Right on. So, Judge, it is good to see you again.
Yes.
Okay. So, quick question. What does Holy Smoke mean to you?
Well, I got involved, as many of us, in Holy Smoke through a friend. One of my friends, Ted Fellner, brought me. And I knew the fellas from the cigar store, but I really didn't know much about Holy Smoke. And it's been a lifeline for so many of us men. And so much so that I recently started a new Holy Smoke group at First Street Church, Joe's church. And it's been a wonderful experience facilitating the meetings. So it's been a growth experience,
Yeah, that's awesome.
And especially when you're facilitating a meeting, you do a lot more in-depth studying about the Bible and the Word, and try and answer questions for the guys and stuff.
Because you got to be prepared.
You got to be prepared, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
So, what's the most amazing thing you've seen with Holy Smoke so far?
Oh gosh, the transformation of so many men. I myself included. Eric teases me once in a while because as a judge, I've been retired for a few years now, and during that period of times when I got involved with Holy Smoke, and myself and so many men have changed. It just changes you. If you really get into the Word and you start living with Christ and walking with Him every day, it really does change you. And Eric always reminds me that you're not the same person I knew 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
and I think that's indicative of all the men that come. We get so many men that go to multiple ones a week. I have fellas coming to mind that have been to this one on Thursday, come to mine on Monday, might even go to Terrence's on Tuesday night. So, yeah.
And like cigars.
It's not the cigars. It's really the Word. As Eric says, let the Word of God do the work of God, and it really does hit home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Judge, great talking to you.
Yes, nice seeing you.
Joe, great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Great to see you. We got to get you on Radical Christianity as often as possible. man.
I'll take it. It's fun.
You're a pretty radical Christian. Not just because you have tattoos either. All right, so tell me about Holy Smoke, what it means to you.
Holy Smoke was a reluctant journey. I didn't want to do it. Eric and I were hanging out at Candy Cane Lane. He has a house in Cindy Lane. And he was showing me his backyard, and we were chatting it up, both of him and I. We go to the cigar lounge and find ourselves in massive questions about the Bible. Guys who'd never go to church, but they were like, but they wouldn't, now that I'm there, or another Christian was there, be like, hey, I got a question. It's like politics or sports, but then it would be the Bible, and the Bible came up a lot. So we're looking at his backyard. Oh, man, this backyard's gorgeous. This would be perfect for a Bible study. He goes, let's do it. Let's start a Bible study with cigars. I go, great, you do it. He goes, no, it'd be awesome. Let's do it. I go, no, you do it. He goes like, no, you, me, Scott. I said, all right. And so it was this reluctant journey that turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. Probably the most honest dialogue. One of the rules of Holy Smoke is use any language you want. Part of the reason a lot of guys who don't know Jesus, they're like, I don't know the rules. I don't know, like if I go to churches, I swear, I don't know the right things to say. And so we said, you don't need to know any of the rules. There are no rules. We're just going to talk about God. And so guys started coming who knew nothing about Jesus. They like cigars, they like to talk. And so this reluctant journey has blossomed into this amazing ministry, whereas Judge started the first Holy Smoke out of my church. And so we have one out of the back room of our church where even our church is excited about it. First Street. They're stoked about the ministry that's happening here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell me the most amazing thing you've seen with Holy Smoke so far.
I won't use names because the second rule of Holy Smoke is what's said at Holy Smoke stays Holy Smoke. You're probably going to figure it out. But anyways, one guy at our church is a sitting judge. And so he was a judge for a long time. And he's there and he's telling his stories and he's talking. It's early on in Holy Smoke. We're just getting started. Months and months go by. One guy's sitting in there, been sitting there for months, and he says, hey, you don't know this, Judge, but you presided over my my divorce trial. You've been sitting quiet the whole time. He said, you presided over my divorce trial, and you took my kids away from me.
Ouch.
And he goes, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. He goes, you made the right decision. That guy today has a relationship with his kids, completely restored with his family, amazing godly guy. And here they, I mean, there's crying. There's a lot of crying in Holy Smoke. And just this like part of someone's journey where he gets to come back around and say, at the time I didn't get it, but I look back now and see what a good thing it was for me to become the man that I needed to be. Probably one of my favorite stories of Holy Smoke.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a terrific story. All right, man. So where do you think Holy Smoke's going to be in the future?
You know, we just launched a cigar. It's going to come out in May. The Holy Smoke cigar. There's 12 of them. It's called the Disciples. The 12 Disciples.
Really?
And yeah.
Where do you get those at?
So we actually had them made by the top manufacturer in Esteli in Nicaragua. Top rollers. Ian, who has Dapper Cigars, which is a local cigar maker here, did all of it for us. Amazing. Did a great job. But what I bring that up because we're going to go to the cigar convention in Las Vegas, the biggest cigar convention in the country. And all the conversation around the board is we don't care about cigars. We care about the groups. And that's the mission of Holy Smoke. I don't know where it'll be in the future. I hope it's a lot of groups of men meeting Jesus, building friendships. Do you know that men, after the age 25, stop having friendships? Like they literally know the guys at work and they know their family. Holy Smoke, these are guys have friends. And the Bible literally says, where two or more are gathered in my name, they'll be present. Jesus and the Father and the Holy Spirit are community and designed us for community. Holy Smoke is bringing men into community. And so then we say to them, like, we're not a church. Like literally, we're a first step. We're a parachurch. What we encourage guys to do then is go get plugged into a church. Go serve at your church. Bring your family to church. Like you can't bring your wife and your kids here, so this can't be everything.
Right.
So what I seek the future of Holy Smoke is men who are transforming their family, their community, their church as they grow. That's what I hope Holy Smoke becomes. Not just some other big, we don't want to be promise keepers. Like not that I'm against that. Like, that's not our goal to become some massive group. Our goal is to see men transformed by the relationship with Jesus. That's the future.
Well, I can imagine that cigar conference would be a great opportunity to blow the groups up.
So excited, because everybody there's pushing cigars, and we're pushing Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's going to be people there like, what are these cigars? And you have to explain, like, you know what? I am going to go start this in my house.
Yep,
you know
100%.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And from manufacturers to distributors, and here's the funny part, is people don't know this. A lot of the big manufacturers are Christians. They just don't talk about it because people have been shamed for smoking cigars.
Right.
And a lot of these guys, we're going to talk to them, they're excited about talking about Jesus on camera and with a cigar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yep.
All right, Joe, great talking to you.
Thanks, sir.
We'll
Appreciate
talk
it.
to you more soon.
All right.
So, Devin, it is great to see you. Can you tell us a little bit what Holy Smoke means to you?
What Holy Smoke means to me. Holy Smoke, it started as a great fellowship of guys, but it didn't start out as a full group. It started out as a few guys wanting to know about the Lord, wanting to hear the word in a cigar shop. And cigar shops are noisy places. The kind of conversations you hear in there, when we advertise it and say, you'd be willing to talk about anything over a cigar, in a cigar shop you will hear anything and everything. So we wanted to take that same delivery method of a cigar and make a safe place, if you will, a safe space where guys aren't going to get interrupted or shouted down by their buddies if they're just wanting to hear about the word. So Holy Smoke, it's a delivery method of the word to guys who are just open to hear. And then, my goodness, if it's not some of the best fruit and filling bread to keep you going through the week, because a lot of guys, we all go to church. Some guys may not, though, and they say, this is like my church. And while I encourage you to find a local church, this is definitely it's a great stepping point for a lot of guys.
Right, that's awesome. So tell me, what's the most amazing thing you've seen since you've been coming to Holy Smoke?
Most amazing thing I've seen since coming to Holy Smoke. We've had some guys, I'm not going to name any names, but you would never think they'd have anything to do with it. Rough, cigar-smoking dudes who just come because all their buddies are here. Well, then they come to a saving faith in Jesus Christ, and I say, no matter what else I could be doing with my free time, there is nothing more important than that. And even one soul saved by this is the most amazing. And we've had many. We've had many.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where do you see Holy Smoke going in the future?
Gosh, we're already expanding to many different states. I'd love to have it just keep expanding. More Holy Smokes than Starbucks would be. Every corner. It'd be great. You know, my wife and I moved a little out of town. It'd be great to start one there. There's natural growth to it, and with the Holy Smoke cigar coming out, there's going to be lots of resources available. And when we get our website and everything up and rolling, this could be a big Bible study that anyone can tack into, and it'll be great.
That's awesome. Hey, great seeing you.
My pleasure.
All right,
See you.
thank you. Eric,
Drew,
how you doing?
I'm doing great, man.
It's great to see you, man. I'm so impressed by all this, man.
Oh, shoot. It's God.
Yeah, I understand that one fully. You know, it's like some things we just can't do on our own. We just have to let God run it, right? So, tell me what Holy Smoke means to you.
Well, I was kind of excited to hear about your deal, radical Christianity, huh?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm thinking, are we doing something radical?
Well, this is
I don't
definitely
know.
radical here.
I
yeah.
guess some people might consider it radical, you know, to have a cigar and open the Word. But what we're doing is we just like to let the Word of God do the work of God. That's kind of a saying that we have at Holy Smoke. And what we mean by that is, you know, it isn't about necessarily teaching or preaching. No one gets up and does a sermon. We just get together as a group of guys and we open up the Word and we just, as the saying goes, we let the Word of God do the work of God. So conversation ensues over a great cigar. There's something really disarming about having a cigar. I heard someone say once that, you know, guys will talk about anything over a cigar. And so that's kind of how it started. And I know you've heard it before, but, you know, we're at a cigar shop or you've been at maybe a bar or at some sort of a place where Bible talk starts happening, you know. Guys will start talking about religion, but it always ends up getting interrupted. Other guys will like maybe even heckle. And it started really with, there was one guy, Robbie Champagne, and we would have these talks, and then he would get really quiet because other guys would chime in and say stuff. Oh, yeah, is this? We're talking about Jesus at the cigar lounge. Is that allowed? And so I said, hey, Robbie, you're interested in what God really has to say. Would you ever consider having a cigar outside of the lounge and we open up the Word and really see what it has to say? He's like, yeah. And all of a sudden a light bulb goes on, and I tell Joe, I go, Joe, why do we have to get together in a little holy huddle inside a church building and read the Bible? Let's just be ourselves. What's more authentic than an actual conversation over the Bible with a cigar? So some people think it's kind of weird that, like, hey, what is that? You're going to have a Bible study and then light a cigar? Is that such sacrilege? And I'm like, is it sacrilege if you're living your true life and you're enjoying a cigar with another man and you start talking about Jesus? Well, no, that's fine. That's how it goes. I go, so what's the difference if I light the cigar while we're talking or right after, or I light it first and then say let's talk? So we just realized there's no difference between having a cigar and reading the Word. So some of the groups around the country do different things. Some guys are really into microbrews. I know you heard one guy come talking about the Baton Rouge group. A lot of home brew guys in that. Some guys do their own distilling and make their own whiskey. Some guys actually make a wine, and they have like a little house wine because they've got a few, vineyard, and so we just embraced, true life and where guys are. It's just been great. It's been great. So I don't know what the original question was, but I was just excited to tell you how well a cigar works with reading the Word, and it's amazing. A lot of questions, a lot of vulnerability, and that's what really makes it great. Is guys are able to say, it's kind of safe because we're all here, we all have a cigar in our hand, and we're all talking about the Bible. So they let it out, and life change just seems to happen. I want to say magically over a cigar, but we know it's no magic.
Yeah, it's definitely not magic. So what would be the most amazing thing you've seen since you started Holy Smoke?
Well, to me, the reason we started it was because we want to see life change. I've heard different versions of that answer, and they're all kind of the same. We view it sort of as an on-ramp. Some guys have told me that going to a Holy Smoke is the greatest church experience they've ever had. And when that's been told to me, I say, well, realize that this isn't a church. Yes, you get to stop and ask questions, where you don't get to stop your pastor on Sunday and ask any questions, right?
That would be funny.
So you're being sort of preached, I hate to say preached at, but you get to be part of it and really be able to work out your salvation, work out what God's talking to you through interaction and conversation with others. And something interesting we found out is if you are a personal studier where you get in a quiet place and you study and you feel like you've really deciphered what it is God's saying through a certain passage, but then you share that exact passage with another man, and he has a new perspective. Not necessarily different, but a new perspective. It's as though the Word is speaking to him through his life experience a little bit differently. And then that same person that thought he got that information out of the Word now has more. And now you add 4 or 5 guys over the same passage, really saying, well, this is what I think God's saying. And over here in this other part of the book or a chapter or in the Bible, here's what that says. And they're like, wow. And we just end up going around. And it's funny because I think we were in Acts 2. And I think we were in Acts 2 for like a year and a half. Because there'd be times where we would read and I'm thinking, okay, are we going to get through one word? Not verse, but one word, 2 words, 3 words. So you'll end up getting through, one verse and really discussing it, and guys walk away like, man, God spoke to me. So I think you're talking about life change a little bit, or what I think is the greatest thing that's happened is it's been an on-ramp for guys to really reconnect with their roots. So many people had bad church experience. Some people will tell you they've been hurt by the church. And church is fine. It's the people in the church that hurt people. you know, and you're going to have that everywhere.
Right.
So it really allows a chance for a guy to kind of safely step in and reconnect. And then we really encourage people to not go to any one church, but to find a home. You know, this is great. And if this Bible study is working for you, then find a home, bring your family, go to that church. So, you know, we're not a single denomination. We're really about the Word and getting God and men back into community with each other. So, I don't know, that's exciting. You want to hear about an exciting thing that isn't really life change? I brought this. This is the only.
Oh, you got them?
This is
yeah.
a cigar that we've created over years. And
I love the logo. I love
the logo, yeah. Crown of Thorns. This is actually called Genesis. It's our first cigar. Okay. So we're rolling out the cigar not so that we can say, oh, we have a cigar. We're not a cigar company. This is really sort of a sense of pride for the guys, because they are, in fact, cigar smokers. That's what is the common denominator. That's what united people. And I know I'm a little bit all over the board, but it's funny because we have a lot of guys that love it so much that they don't even smoke cigars, but they come for the Bible study. Some pipe smokers too. So we allow you just come however you want, but just show up. But this here is called the Holy Smoke, and it's only 12 cigars, kind of modeled. There's some themes, you know. We modeled it, 12 disciples, 12 cigars, kind of fun. We designed this with a piano finish. These guys can keep it. We want them to be able to, whatever, throw their change in it after they smoke them all.
Right.
But here's the cigar.
That's awesome.
It's called the Figurado, and
those are beautiful cigars.
yeah, thank you. So we love it. Built in Nicaragua, and we got a Mexican wrapper on it, which is one of the most sought after wrappers, called San Andreas wrapper. So if you're into cigars, you'll understand this is probably a pretty great blend, and we think it is. We worked on it for a few years with a great cigar blender.
Yeah. How many times have you sampled these?
We sampled a lot of different sizes, a lot of different blends until we finally settled on it, and we wanted it to be perfect. So we believe they are, and come May, we're going to launch those, and they'll be available globally through Dapper Cigars.
That's awesome.
So anywhere Dapper's sold in the world, they can buy a Holy Smoke cigar. But it's kind of like if you're in a bike club or any other type of club, you know, they'll have some swag. You'll see guys with hats, you know, just kind of supporting the brotherhood, so to speak. Our brotherhood simply has its own cigar too, so we're pretty excited about it. So I'm thinking maybe this will be the only cigar I smoke from now on. So we're highly invested in it. So I'm going to probably have to be one of the big consumers of that too. So
Yeah, that makes sense. It does.
It's great.
Eric, this is all really impressive. I'm so grateful that you are doing this, and I'm sure God is too.
We're excited.
Jazz.
Yes,
good to
sir.
See you. Good
to see you, Drew. How are you?
I am doing all right. I am so impressed by what you guys are doing here. So, okay, there's a couple of things obviously we need to talk about. One is your story.
Okay.
Because your story is impressive.
I appreciate that. Well, you know, as you know, I was born in a third world country, but had the opportunity to come to a great country like this, the United States, and to be able to have the ability to go from one religion to another, right? It's something that nobody thinks about, right? Something that they're born into, and it's like, what are you doing? How can you change religions, or what got you to change? And I think part of the thing is not just being able to go to church, which I love, but the ability to interact, to ask questions, to learn more, right? As I'm somebody that always wants to know more. So my questions used to pop up in my head as I'm sitting in church, and I'm like, how do I get to know more? How do I get to dig in deeper? And that's what Holy Smoke has done for me.
Okay, excellent. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So you were Sikh before?
I was born into the Sikh religion. I was born in India, came here at the age of 12, and just love the opportunities that this country has given me, and embraced me, and it's just something I love.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so tell me about the coin.
All right, so the challenge coin. Most of us know it's always been the elite group as Navy SEALs, somebody that has had the coin. And why do they have the coin? They want to make sure that everybody knows they're part of an elite group. And that's what we think of ourselves at Holy Smoke, that we are unique. I heard earlier somebody say radical. Hopefully we are, because that means that we're trying to do something different in a positive way to impact men in a positive direction. So there's three things associated. First one is to pray. What does that mean? So on a daily routine, you have work, you have family, you're doing stuff, and maybe you thought about praying for somebody, but it just gets away from you because of the busy day, and you reach in your pocket, and all of a sudden you feel the coin, and it acts as a reminder. Hey, wait a minute, I was supposed to pray for somebody. And so now you can go ahead and actually pray. Second part, invite. What does that mean? Say you're sitting in a social environment and there's somebody that's always been asking, hey, what is this Holy Smoke? What do you guys do there? What's happening? And you kind of give them the information, but they never really have shown up yet. Well, you reach in your pocket and you feel the coin. Well, now it acts as a reminder to maybe they're waiting for a personal invite. So it's like, hey, Drew, you've heard about the Holy Smoke. I know you've asked some questions. How about if I personally invite you? Would you like to show up? So there's pray, invite. And then there's the third part, which is challenge. And that's where the coin comes from. And that's why we're in this beautiful place here, is because somebody actually lost the challenge who didn't have their coin. So the challenge part also, you're sitting in a cigar shop. You're sitting at a restaurant. Your Holy Smoke brothers, somebody reaches out, puts the coin down. Now, if you don't have it, there's the challenge part. You got to pay for everybody. So either whether it's a cigar, whether it's drinks, whether it's food, it doesn't matter. The environment you're in, you got to take care of them. And like I said before, that's how we ended up in this beautiful place. Is somebody didn't have their coin on them, and so now we have this place to do Holy Smoke.
I noticed Joe has his coin on his phone.
Yeah, you know what? He's actually very smart. And the reason I say that, because most times people go, oh, does that mean cheap? No, I go, no. In Indian, like, cheap means smart. So Joe's very smart. He glued his on the back of his phone so he can never leave home without it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so what is the most amazing thing you've seen in Holy Smoke?
Like I said before, it's the ability to interact. It's the ability to see men open up to other men, which typically doesn't happen outside of this environment. It's the ability to embrace each other as well. Sometimes we think that we're the only ones going through something and nobody's going to understand. And all of a sudden you find out, you open up to somebody and they're like, man, either I went through it or I'm going through it as well, or just a different way. So it lets others help you. It lets others embrace you. It lets others be part of that group so you can actually support each other. And that's what I love about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Jazz, it is good to know you.
You too, Drew. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us today for another episode of Radical Christianity. You can find us on the internet at rad4christ.com. That's radforchrist.com with the number 4. Okay. On there we have a bunch of little goodies and stuff that you can check out. The website is still kind of new, but it will grow over time. But there's a really important thing that we want to talk about, right? So we had some great guests today. We had Brandon and Holy Smoke. The guys at Holy Smoke were great. One thing that everybody's telling you here is that Jesus is real, right? Jesus is real. And you may hear Jesus knocking at the door of your heart. You may be hearing that right now. And if you're hearing that, I'm encouraging you to listen. I want you to think about that. Just think about how Jesus is there knocking at your heart. And if you feel as though it's time, like maybe you're ready to take that step to give Jesus control, like let Jesus, be the one that fixes everything in your world, then just say something like, Jesus, I believe in you. I know you're there. I'm going to give up my way and I want to go your way. I want you to show me how to be the person you made me to be. And if you say something like that to Jesus and you really mean it, he's going to come in. You're letting him in. And if you do that, and you've done that during the show with us just now, I want you to go on radforchrist.com and fill out the form and let us know. And because then I'm going to send you a Bible and maybe a little gift and a note. And I'm going to, I want you to know that you're welcome to reach out to us. You can ask us a question. You can tell us your prayer requests. Whatever it is you need, we are here for you, okay? Because it's really important that you know this, that Jesus Christ loves you, and so do I, all right? God bless you, and thank you for watching an episode of Radical Christianity.
Isn't it amazing how a man can find himself alone? Fall into a darkness for an answer that he's never known. And isn't it amazing how a God could take a broken man? And I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me. I will I'll hold on to you. No matter what this world throws.
It's a mystery.